You might remember a few weeks back, I had a chat with Kallista, the kinky yoga instructor. During that conversation, which you should definitely check out, by the way, if you've not seen, during that conversation, she had some really interesting thoughts about what people who do rope bondage can learn from yoga.
I'm like really difficult to choke out because one, I can hold my breath for a very long time. Two, I breathe with the whole of my lungs. Someone decided they were going to try to squeeze the bottom of my ribs to constrict my airflow. And I was like, no, I just use the top of my lungs, it's fine. And vice versa, they then put their hand on my sternum. And I was like, no, it's fine. You do actually learn how to breathe in such a way that you start to learn how to work around physical limitations. Because if you think about being in a position like easy seat, so just sitting cross-legged and sitting upright, it's a lot easier to do what we call belly breathing. So full on pulling the diaphragm down, expanding the abs so that you can fill the lungs completely. If you're in cobra and your belly's on the ground and you're trying to lift your chest up, like your belly's not going anywhere. Your diaphragm's not going to pull down as far, so you need to know how to fill the top of your lungs as well.
These are all things I've never thought about.
You know, it's really cool though.
Yeah.
Is as a dom, and you can try this sometime. If you can get your sub to shift where they're breathing, you can trigger their emotional state 100%. So when you are breathing with all of your lungs, it takes more time. You take in more air, but it's a more relaxed action. So what happens is your body goes, hey, I'm safe here. We can relax, we can chill. Your vagus nerve, which is kind of like the control switch for all of your hormones, goes, okay, it's relaxing time. And the heart starts to slow down and you start to enter that subspace. If you're forcing someone to breathe with the top of their lungs, the only time that you breathe with the top of your lungs is when you're in a situation where your fight or flight is kicked in. So people who have like high anxiety, people who are really pent up all the time and under a lot of stress, you'll notice they either mouth breathe or they breathe and all of their breathing is here. And the reason why is because they're stuck in that fight or flight. So you can actually turn around and put somebody in a state where they feel more alert and where they're paying more attention to you and where their heart is beating a little bit faster by making them breathe with the top of their lungs. And you can do that just by throwing somebody on their stomach and then pulling their chest up off the ground so that they're in a position like cobra.
Where they can't expand their tummy.
And the other thing that you can do is really subtle. I'll do this with you. We can experience it together. You take your hands, and you put your hands, palms down on your knees. Close your eyes. Just take a couple of breaths.
Now I'm super self-conscious about where I'm breathing into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just breathe through your nose. So each inhale goes through the nose. Down the passage of the throat. Diaphragm pulls down. Lungs expand. Now without changing anything else, just turn your hands over so the palms are facing the ceiling. You feel the shift in your breathing. So when you bring your hands palms up, most people tend to find that they breathe more with the top of their lungs.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you tie someone with their hands up, basically what happens, right? So from an anatomy point of view, palms shift, forearm rotates. And then I think you've actually talked about this where like all the joints are connected. So you can take someone's finger and pull. So that rotates, this rotates, the collarbone pushes back, the shoulders push back and down. The chest comes up. You begin to breathe with the top of your lungs. And it's so subtle, but it creates that little bit of alertness.
Wow.
So when you see a yoga person like meditating and their hands are like this, they're doing it to get a little bit of extra oxygen, a little bit of extra energy before they go into their practice. But for you, as a dom, as a rigger, if you force someone's hands to be like that, you can actually take a person's mindset and bring it right where you want it to be.
Wow.
If you want to calm somebody down, calms down. They start to belly breathe because everything rotates back, comes to a more neutral position. And then they have the ability to breathe fully. I think a lot of people are like, oh, the dom is in charge, so it's the dom's job too. No, dom is in charge, but the dom is not like the be all end all. Not really. You have to be able, as a sub, you have to be able to say, this is what I bring. I would really, really like to be able to work with people in workshops so that subs, regardless of whether they're going into play or into a scene or they're living it 24/7, they know what they can bring to the table. Because a sub that just kind of floats around in the ether and waits for a dom to come upon them is not going to have anything valuable for a long-term relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
I would really like to be able to go even that far and to use yoga as a foundation of self-discovery and self-awakening so that people can work on themselves and then know going into the world, this is what I have.
I completely agree with what you're saying. And even from like a smaller perspective, even if you're just going, if you're bouncing from play partner to play partner and you just want to have a bit of kinky fun, I think what doesn't get talked often enough is like riggers need to know anatomy and riggers need to know like how you can break someone with ropes so you don't do it. But there's so many little differences in what people can take based on their anatomy. Mm-hmm. And as a sub, your body is the same all the time. So you can carry all that information with you from play partner to play partner. Mm-hmm. Whereas a dom, has to make educated guesses and work things out every time. If you can show up to a play session and be like, actually, I can't do this with my arm, but I can do this with my arm, you have so much more to offer as a play partner, in my opinion.
I can definitely see that, especially because going back to knowing your own body and being able to tell the difference between this is a good pain and this is a bad pain. So pleasurable pain versus harmful pain. That's really important. You are not in my body. Mm-hmm. So if you are tying me, I cannot realistically have the expectation that you're going to know the difference between which pain is which for me. And I cannot have the expectation that you're going to know when I'm in a position where I need to be adjusted. So knowing my body is the most helpful thing that I can do. And a bunny that doesn't want to know their own body, a bunny who wants to put all of that onto the rigger is really irresponsible and is quite dangerous. I think they're really taking edge play to a level that isn't appropriate for the scene.
Yeah. Or they're deliberately not observing their own boundaries.
Yeah.
So they're feeling that something's wrong, but they're not saying, hey, is this okay?
Yeah.
And that's concerning.
And like the thing is, you're always going to be presented with situations where you don't realize what's happening. So one of the first times that I was tied for a very long time, I had my right arm behind my back and pulled up. I didn't realize that my fingers had gone numb because it was the first main time that, I had played, particularly with a large group of people. So I didn't catch that. And that's where it's nice to have the second pair of eyes because you're not always going to catch things. Yeah. But at the same time, after having that experience, I was like, okay, I need to know this arm better. I need to know what it feels like for this arm to be behind my back for a long period of time. And I need to make sure that I can tell the difference so that next time, if I'm with somebody who is not as observant, thankfully I was, with someone who had a lot of experience and there were other people in the room. And I think that it was actually their partner who turned around and said, check that doesn't look right. You can't always be in a room full of very experienced people.
Yeah.
So as a beginner, that was my mistake. That was totally my bad. But also as a beginner, it's my responsibility to go home and to make sure that I know this arm better.
Yeah.
And that the next time I'm uncomfortable with something, or if I go into a certain thing, I have the foresight to go, hey, last time that happened, this happened as a result.
That's good communication.
Mm-hmm. And that's really important. Because that's a lot about what this is. When you're, tying somebody or being tied by someone, it's a form of communication, it's a form of expression, and a way to connect. And, going back to yoga, if you can't connect with yourself, how are you going to connect to other people? If your fuses aren't working and if the connections aren't being made in your little light bulb, when you're plugged into a socket somewhere, you're not going to be able to light up because you're not in good working order. So you've got to be able to turn your attention inward and go, where am I? What am I like? What's going on inside of my head right now?
Hey friends, hope you enjoyed that. The whole point of this channel was we were looking to create accessible, high quality rope education. The idea was to pay for the amount of time it takes the videos, was we were going to use YouTube ad revenue. Problem is that YouTube, Instagram, etc., not a huge fan of content like this. The vast majority of what we do gets demonetized because they don't like it. If you want to keep supporting things like this and you can afford it, there is a link to Patreon on screen now. If you can donate a small amount, then we really appreciate that. And people who do donate, there's all sorts of goodies on there. There is extra videos, there's articles, there's Q&As. Oh my god, there's so much stuff. Go check it out, see what you think. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.